If you're just hanging out here and you don't know who I am, you don't haven't seen my content, I'm Leslyn. I'm a therapist by day. I had a couple of really interesting things come up in sessions today, and until you guys really start asking questions, I'll just share one of the big things that really was prevalent today is how many people are parenting from a fear space. So I was thinking about it a lot. I think a lot of people parent from fear. I think I parented from fear um, in some cases, and I think what we see is that that doesn't work. Scotland, I am a mental health therapist. I do a lot of marriage counseling. I do a lot of life coaching, parent coaching, that kind of thing. Would a therapist tell you that you're in an unhealthy relationship? Would a therapist tell your boyfriend you're in an unhealthy relationship? Maybe. I think I probably would say if somebody was describing a communication pattern or a relation pattern, I would say, gosh, that sounds really unhealthy. So, yeah, maybe. What do you do to punish a child who just refuses to do homework? Hello, Snicker Eye. So I'm going to say that there's a natural consequence. And this is part of what's hard. Um, I think it's part of what's hard about being a parent, right? And that fear based thing that I was talking about. So, 14 years old, what's the natural consequence of not doing homework? It's not getting a good grade. And so often I hear then, well, should I just let them fail? Yeah. And what you and I know, and what most adults know, is that if we let our kids fail in ninth grade, it takes the entire remaining 3 years to make up for that, right? Like one bad semester could affect their GPA for the rest of their high school tenure. We know that. They don't yet know it. Now, letting him fail, it, the reason, so this is what I mean when I say that we're parenting, and I did it too, so I'm just going to put it out there. We're parenting based on what we're afraid of. So I think I would sit down, um, that you're letting natural consequences take effect. Yes, and so that's excellent advice, Caitlin. The natural consequences are, first of all, I would sit down and I'd say, okay, I'm not going to make you do your homework anymore. And this is what I do, by the way, with teenagers that are in my office. What do you want to do? Do you want to get out of the house? Do you want to move out someday? Do you want to, I mean, at 14, you don't necessarily know if you want to be an accountant or a doctor, a musician or an artist, but what do you want to do? Um, I am, I want you to do that, right? I want you to be, even if it's an artist, but the truth of the matter is you can't do any of those things unless you get out of high school. And a lot of those things you can't do unless you get out of college. And in order to get out of college, you have to get into college. In order to get into college, and so I would really start with what is this thing you want? And then literally lay out the game board, literally like the game of life. You could even play the game of life and maybe use that as kind of a springboard for a couple of discussions. Because you don't have to go to college, but the game of life really kind of highlights the fact that if you don't go to college, your gross potential for income is much less. Now, that's not obviously that's not always true. Um, so I think it's really important to get them to stay focused on what they want. Nobody that I know of likes to take Algebra 1. Now, even those people who love math, they don't see... I just had somebody say to me, why did I take trigonometry? Why did I have to suffer through that? You know, you can also say, if you don't like this school, I don't know where you live or what your situation is, but I had a parent say, listen, if you don't like school, then you research some other option. Let's figure out where you can work at 14. Let's figure out what your income potential is, because if you're not going to go to school and be a full-time student, you have to pay rent. You know, and I think there are elements that we can teach our kids if you have to have calculus. Oh boy. So I just think it's really important for you to start helping him identify what the natural consequences are. And you left school at 15, failed, pregnant at 19, now you have a well-paid job, family, and a house. He says he's going to be a YouTuber to make money. Great. I've had so many kids say that to me. Great. Until those checks start rolling in, you have to keep up with school, because you always have to have a plan B. And Snicker, I would truly get him to answer a lot of these questions, right? I think the more, and this is one of the things that I really stressed with a couple of clients today, the more we can involve our kids in the conversation, not that they get to necessarily steer the boat or drive the boat, but we can get them to walk us through it. I want you to drive the boat, but I want you to do it safely. So I'm going to teach you what driving's all about. I want you to watch, I want you to listen, I want you to learn. And, you know, then we're going to get behind the wheel and we're going to go in this big space where you can't really get hurt. You can make decisions on your own, where I'm not going to be afraid that you're going to kill yourself the first time you go out. And I think that it's okay for you to say to them, I'm afraid for you. But I also want you to know that I'm not 100% sure that parenting from that space of fear is necessarily good for either one of you. Can someone have abusive behavior without it being domestic violence? That's an interesting question. My instinct is to say no. I guess abusive behavior can be, I guess it depends on definition. So in my mind, when I think about domestic violence, I think about physical brutality. But abusive behavior can be emotional abuse. It can be financial abuse. It can be, those are probably the big ones. And so those probably don't fall under the category of domestic violence. So thinking it through, I would say that you can be abusive, like emotionally abusive, and probably still not have it fall under domestic violence in some jurisdictions. I think we're getting better at that. Like, we're getting better at recognizing intense emotional abuse. Financial abuse, I'm pretty sure that if somebody cuts off all sources of income to you, or even just access to money, that's a domestic violence violation, I think, in some jurisdictions. So I know that wasn't a short black and white answer, but hopefully it helped you a little bit. Not all abusers are domestic. Oh, well, so that's a good point, right? So what baking is saying is abusers don't necessarily have to, I think what you're saying is abusers don't necessarily have to be in your home, right? So abusers can be neighbors or co-workers or employees or any other person. I was just thinking more of in relationship terms, is all abuse considered domestic violence? And I would say some jurisdictions probably don't consider some of what we consider abuses as violence. My brother has been abusive to me lately and he doesn't live with you. Yeah, person does not have to live with you for sure. I think I was just, the way that I understood that question was about domestic violence in particular. Raising your sister's boy, the goal is reunification. You're 29, no kids. Ooh, how to gently explain that he can't stay. I would be very honest and say that, you know, you are helping mommy and, you know, just always, you know, when mommy gets better, you're going to be going to live with her because that's really what we do when we can. We live with our mommies and daddies, and you don't say how old he is, but I would just be very, very honest all the time with the idea that he's got stability, right? Like, you're here and we're going to take care of you, but when mommy's better, you're going to go stay with her. By the way, that's something else that was super cool. I had a client send me a picture today. She bought 15 of my books. She asked me, she said, I bought 15 books. Would any chance I can bring them to you to autograph? And I'm like, what? Why did you buy so many books? And she was so sweet. Her husband apparently picked up her copy of it and started reading it and said, oh my gosh, I want to give one of these to all of my ladies in the office. So, yes, that's exactly it, Caitlin. Anyway, that was really fun, right? To know that somebody bought 15 books. That's probably more books than I sold almost all of last year. No, that's probably not true. But anyway, it was kind of fun. Here's a topic. What happens if your therapist fires you? Whew. What happens? Well, a therapist should, I mean, I guess I would want to know the conditions, because a therapist, if they let you go, generally speaking, it should be with a list of referrals of people that you can call for a session. And so I would want to know, like, is the therapist firing you because they don't feel that they're a good fit for you? Are they firing you because they have reached the end of their capacity to help you? Is it because you're bringing up things that need work that they're not, and I guess this is kind of the same thing, that they're not qualified to handle? Is it because for some reason maybe I've known therapists that fired people who weren't honest with them. Hello, Julie. You had a therapist from 9 years ago send you a Facebook request recently. Cheers, Lois. Julie, that's unusual. I mean, honestly, I personally would not do that because I would think that that was a violation of me to them. Although after 9 years, if they requested me and I felt comfortable with the person in general, I would probably accept, but I don't think I would ever initiate that contact. And technically, baking, it's after a couple of years, it's not a breach of confidentiality. I mean, technically, I think Facebook's a little bit different because that's a public platform. But I think that even that confidentiality conversation could be probably argued because I think it might be 7 years where you have to keep those records sealed. It's been a while since I've done the numbers on exactly how many months that's supposed to be. So you're seeing a psychiatrist for diagnosis, but it's not therapy. It's an evaluation, but you want to keep him as a therapist. So most psychiatrists these days do not do therapy. They used to. A lot of times they used to, but most of them don't today. Most psychiatrists today, from my experience at least, really do med management and evaluation. And then they work with therapists. So are you saying it was the psychiatrist that said, no, we can't work together? Therapist said no because he feels like it's not going anywhere. But I think I get the correct treatment and stuff. I'd be able to be more open in therapy. Just looking for him to give you a chance. Cheers, Sasha. I hope you're well. Well, I actually would recommend that you say that, and then, maybe it's a boundary that he set about how many psychiatric clients like this, and this might be a thing, but sometimes depending on the practice, docs are not allowed, if they're doing med management, they're not allowed to do talk therapy with clients. I knew a therapist that was a massage therapist before she became a counseling therapist, and she had to keep those things separate because you can't mix and match your professions necessarily. I don't know that that specifically applies to psychiatry, because I also know some psychiatrists who treat patients as therapeutically. But I would ask. It doesn't seem like any of the things that I was suggesting really pertain to this context, but I would just ask. And here's the other thing I'm going to say. Try to trust that they're leading you in a direction that's going to work in your best interests. Because, it would be helpful if he would be maybe a little bit more vocal or clear about that. How do you say goodbye so easily to people whose well-being you've been invested in? Sometimes it's hard, but it's for me at least, I don't really say goodbye to my clients. I leave that door wide open, and you're welcome, Latavia. This is what I do. I'll say to somebody, listen, and most of the time, if a client's been with me for a while, we titrated down our sessions, right? So maybe we saw each other every week, then we saw each other every 2 weeks, and then I stretched out to 3 weeks a couple of times, and then maybe it was two 1 month visits. And after that second 1 month visit, or maybe even the first one, especially if all we're really doing is talking about life. We're not really problem solving or digging. We're just, talking about the Phillies game or their kids' little league or something like that. If that's all we're doing, then they don't need me. And so I spend the bulk of that last session just really kind of reviewing, you know what, when you first came in here, I have this vivid memory of blah, 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 and I don't see that today. And it just occurs to me that you've grown so much, and you have so much to be proud of, and you have a long list of tools. You've got this and this and this, and this is resolved and that's resolved, and you're so good at this now. And so we don't need to schedule another appointment unless it just really helps you to know that you have something on the books. But the truth is, all you have to do if you need me is pick up the phone and say, Leslyn, what do you have? Because I'm not going anywhere. And if you hit and snag someplace, I am another tool in your toolbox. So this really isn't goodbye. It's like, see you later. And that's really what I do. And I would say that maybe 20 to 30% of those people actually come back for some reason. And Sasha, I'm going to recommend that if you still have any of that stuff going on, that you find yourself right back there. And because I'm a big believer, obviously, that everybody could benefit from therapy. But I'm also a huge believer that if at any point in time we feel stuck, or we have stuff in our past that just doesn't feel like it's gotten sewn up, that we go talk to a neutral person. There is therapy with the right person can be the best gift you have ever given yourself. And especially for people who have insurance and can find somebody who takes insurance, I just have seen so many people with these, what they're perceiving as hard lives. And then they get unstuck, and it's like this whole new person emerges. And I want you to know that if there is anything I can do to help you with that journey, all you have to do is reach out. But please don't forget that, because, and that's open for literally anybody who's listening to me. If you need help connecting with a therapist or finding the courage to talk to a therapist, I will help you. I will have at least a conversation with you so that you feel supported in moving along that decision path. Because I don't think, Amy, thank you. I just don't think that there needs to be a barrier. And even though I know that there often is, my God, I've been that person so many times in my life where I was nauseous walking in. And, Sin, how are you? And just like literally able to throw up meeting a new person. And, I've had people come in and spend $300, $400, $500 before they ever told me the real problem. And I get it. I get it, because they didn't know me. I'm just some woman in an They don't know if they can trust me, or if I am somebody that would even understand them. And so we just talk in circles. One time I remember this woman, I don't remember much of it, but she did not want to talk about her mom. I'm pretty sure. And it's the same thing. If they see me virtually, it's really the same thing. But sometimes that's even worse, right? Because it's just like, grippy sock vacation. Is that what you said? Grippy sock vacation is a legit fear. Anyway, I had this woman say, I don't want to talk about my mom. And I'd say, okay, I respect that. And so she'd say, but I have this other little problem. And then all of a sudden, we're like, that little problem leads directly to mom. And I'll be like, oh, but we don't need to talk about your mom if you're not ready. Okay. So we get to this other problem, and that would lead directly to mom. And, it's probably 4 or 5 sessions. And finally I said, it occurs to me that you've spent $400, $500 avoiding talking about your mom. But every time we try to talk about something, it points to your mother. So what do you need to feel comfortable talking about your mom? And, I probably was even a little sassier, because I can get a little sassy. I'm like, what do we need to do to warm up enough that you're ready to talk about your mom? Because I don't think this is going away anytime soon. And, yeah, so, it's hard to talk to people. The last minute topic that really should have been brought up earlier, also very real. It's so true. It's also like the people who come in and we spend 50 of our 55 minutes talking about, I don't know, something over here. And then they'll say, oh, because I have a clock, at the office behind where the client sits, and they'll look back and they'll be, oh, I really wanted to bring something else up today. Oh. So I love what I do, and I no matter how many times it happens. Yes, Julie, vulnerability is scary. Turning 51 tomorrow and falling apart. JJ, the hard part was 50. 51 is nothing. 51 is irrelevant, right? You can be 50 again. It's just an extension, really, of 50. And if 50 worked, then 51 is just, you're guilty of door handle confessions. Sometimes you have to run out of them. Is that what it is? It's that you're so afraid of their reaction or what you're going to have to talk about that you intentionally wait until the last possible minute to bring it up. Oh, that makes so much sense. Door handle confessions. I know it's so true. It's like, yeah. So next week, you know what I do, especially if I don't have another session coming up, I'm like, wait a minute, let's take a few minutes and process this. I know your game, and I'm gonna raise the bar. I'm also 51, so I get it. We'll get through it together. There you go. You guys, I have 10 years on you. And 51 is just the beginning. It's your whole 50s are going to be the best decade of your life. Truly. Even, I have to tell you, even with Harlan's death, my 50s were amazing. You're doing fine, Caitlin. Shh. Your 50s are amazing. They really will be. You're going to look back and say, I wish I was 50 again. I mean, it is what it is, right? But I look at my 50s, especially when I was 50, and I'm like, wow, I had no appreciation for this whatsoever. Have a great week, guys. Bye.